Hey everybody, I wanted to record a very quick video to walk through the assignment for this coming Sunday. So I've received a couple of questions about this project draft, and I wanted to kind of go through the prompt and use an example to maybe help shed a little bit of light on what I'm looking for this particular assignment. So I decided I'm going to select Stranger Things as an example of a creative expression. And in this case, it would be a television series. And I'm going to kind of walk through the four elements of this prompt to give you an example of how this might look. So, thinking of the work selected, explore how acts of creative expression, in this case, Stranger Things, impact and are impacted by the people and situations surrounding them. So if I take this example, I know when the first season came out, there were many of us that were very excited about it for all kinds of different reasons. First of all, the impact for those of us who grew up in the 80s, like myself, was one of certainly nostalgia, seeing all kinds of references and clothing and toys and all the different decor in the background. It was very familiar to many of us, so there was that element of the show that had that kind of nostalgic impact. Also, for those of us who play Dungeons and Dragons, it was exciting to see that game depicted on TV and for it to be such a core element of the show. There's all kinds of wonderful nerd references throughout the series. So that was something that was a positive impact. It also brought those different subcultures, we've talked a lot about subcultures, into kind of public discourse again as a result of the show. So that's the way that the show impacted others who maybe haven't experienced Dungeons and Dragons before seeing the show but wanted to know more about it. As the series has unfolded, there's all kinds of other genres that have been at play. This more recent season, there's certainly a number of nods to huge cult classic horror films. So, again, there's that impact of other creative aspects from the past that are being tied into this show and perhaps will inspire future fan fiction, future spin offs, whatever it might look like. So, that's that interplay between the impact of the culture that is producing this creative expression, and in turn, how that creative expression, so Stranger Things, impacts the culture back. So hopefully that helps explain a little bit. And then the second part of the prompt, state questions about the relationship between culture and expression. So again, there's all kinds of ways that you can develop these questions, but think about how a culture influences the people who are making creative expressions. So, for example, if your culture is very restrictive and conservative, you might not feel comfortable creating something that is very edgy and taboo. Conversely, you might want to create those things in order to challenge the values of the culture. So think about that when you're creating the questions that are specific to your object but get at that relationship between culture and expression. So if I was looking at Stranger Things, I might ask, did the popularity of nerd gaming that has happened over the last decade or so influence the desire to portray that on a mass media scale by creating this show? Or is the fact that horror films tend to become more popular in the midst of global crisis, like a pandemic, was that an influence on the way that the show was created? The third part of the prompt, state questions about your values and how they are shaped by the expression of others. So let's say that my value was that I didn't really think that gaming was valuable or important or interesting. And then I watched Stranger Things and I saw that it was portrayed in a very positive way in the show, but also perhaps as part of why these kids get themselves into trouble. That might shape how I interact with the show that I'm watching and how I interact with gaming in the future and so on and so forth. And then finally, determine how you would go about answering the questions. So you don't need to necessarily get into the answers for this assignment. Instead, you're going to be looking at what would be some places to research that could get you started on this. So it might be that you're going to go to a particular database in the library, that you're going to look for behind the, I'm doing Stranger Things, maybe I'm going to look for interviews that are available online with the writers and directors of the show. Maybe I'm going to read some, you know, perspectives or editorials on what might have inspired the show, why it was so popular, those kinds of things. So that's what you're looking for this assignment. Don't feel that you have to be overly detailed in terms of your answer. When you go to construct your project draft, you'll notice 1 to 2 pages Word document with 12-point font. You can also use headings to subdivide it. I really recommend that you use the prompt to guide the content so that you don't lose points for forgetting things. A few times so far, I've had to leave notes on people's rubrics just saying, make sure that you don't forget to include answers to each element of the assignment so that you don't lose unnecessary points. I want to see you guys get the grades that you deserve. All right, so I hope this is helpful. Let me know if you have any further questions. You can email me anytime.